Hello everyone, today we're going to be checking out the new featured location, Bar Sinister. Now, featured locations occur in 40% of games, so it's going to occur much more often than it normally would. And this featured location, when you play a card here, it's going to fill up that location with copies of it. And so we're going to be running a Spectrum ongoing deck list for this location, but we're just going to go ahead and jump in, and I'll do some explaining along the way. Alright, so first up we have Noroku. And looking at this list, the idea behind it is that on the final turn, we can drop into Bar Sinister either our Blue Marvel or our Spectrum more ideally, so that we can impact the entire board multiple times, because Bar Sinister is going to fill up the lane with that card. So if we drop one of those on the board, we should be able to keep pace with whatever the opponent's going to drop, unless they just drop something really large there, and then we're impacting 2 lanes instead of just 1. They can have that 1 lane that they stack 4 Hulks in. We want to take the other 2. And so with Spectrum, you can actually outpace the opponent's Blue Marvel if they're still running the Zoo. If they did not pivot away from the Zoo, then you can actually outpace their Blue Marvel drop, because Spectrum is going to give +2 power to each of your ongoing cards versus Blue Marvel just giving +1 to each card. And so we do have a slight upside in Sakaar. I think we go ahead and we play our Lizard into Xandar. I'm thinking they might be stacking some on-reveal abilities into Sakaar for a late game Odin play. And so that's important to know, because if they drop it here, that's going to be 8, and then now it's going to be 10 extra power on that final turn in Sakaar. Plus, they're going to give a White Tiger to push into the other lanes. Just knowing or anticipating that potential last turn play, I think is going to be very, very important for us. But at the same time, we have a really strong finisher with Bar Sinister, so I'm going to go ahead and snap. I feel okay about kind of where we're at. I do want to push a little bit more, a few more ongoing cards into Sakaar, because we're going to need to compete with this location to be able to win it and lock it down. So let's drop the armor first off. We're going to see what they end up dropping in Bar Sinister. So they drop a Wolfsbane, which is kind of interesting. That means it's going to, I mean, they're all going to trigger, which is good. It's going to be a pretty high power play, but that commits them to that lane pretty early. And so although we cannot beat 23 power with whatever we drop, we can drop something more advantageous for us and for our play style. So let's play our Colossus into Xandar. It does look like they're going with an Odin on reveal, so I am very confident that they're going to maybe stack an Ironheart here, and then an Odin to push another White Tiger token over here. So as long as we can beat about 18 to 20 power in Xandar, we should be okay. And I think, so the Enchantress does hurt, because then they're not going to receive the ongoing Spectrum buff if that is what we drop. If it's not what we drop, then I think we're okay. If we do something like Blue Marvel, maybe we can swing it out. So we don't have our Spectrum yet. I think we need to plan as if we're going to drop Blue Marvel into Bar Sinister, and that be the one that we copy across. And so to do that, right now we have a pretty decent lead here, but we have to remember that they're going to push at least another 8 power or so over here. And so I think what we want to do, so if this triggers 4 times, it's going to be 1, 2, 3 times 4. So it's going to be an extra 12 power into the Xandar lane. So it's going to be 24 power as is right now. And so if they push an Odin, which pushes their White Tiger over, that's going to be 21. So actually, I think we're fine. The only reason I don't want to do an Iron Man over here is that maybe they end up shifting their Odin here to re-trigger Enchantress and take out the Iron Man ability. And so I think we're going to push them into a corner. They did snap back, but I think we're fine. With this playline, we should be okay. So they drop an Angela, they drop a Nightcrawler. I fully anticipate the Odin on the final play, but we're going to be able to outpace them between our Blue Marvel buff. I don't think they can keep up with that amount of power. Actually, the Nightcrawler gives them an extra 3. And so now if Odin triggers, that is going to push a White Tiger token over there, which is another 8. So that's going to be 24 power for them. And so we're actually going to tie this location. Unless they do something outside of what I'm planning, we tie in Xandar, which is fine. We're okay with the tie. We win Sakaar pretty heavily. We lose Bar Sinister. I think we should win Sakaar by more than they win Bar Sinister because of the Iron Man bonus. And so I think we're okay here. We're going to go ahead and lock it in. We anticipate the Odin, which we've anticipated since I think turn 2 is what we saw it. And so 24 power in Xandar is absolutely fine. We have the Iron Man that's going to get a +4 power to all of the cards in that lane, and that is going to duplicate that bonus between all of our blue marvels. And so we're going to have a really, really big Sakaar lane. Xandar should, if my math was right, come out and match it exactly for that tie. And then we should absolutely win. Oh, no, we actually win Bar Sinister too. That is not... I didn't think we were going to be able to push that much power. But that is the potential of this kind of pivotable card or pivotable deck, is that the blue marvels were feeding off of each other. It pushed it up to 24 power. We actually stole away 2 of the lanes, and so it didn't even matter that we ended up tying in Sakaar. That is the prime example of the power of this deck list and kind of that pivotability and being able to shift it around. And so let's jump over into the next one. All right, so next up we have Captain America. So the first location is Danger Room, the second one is Washington, D.C. We don't really have anything great to go here, but we do have our armor that will help protect us in Danger Room. We can go ahead and flood that location. Now, if the last location does not turn out to be Bar Sinister, that is okay. Building a deck around a featured location, you want the deck to still perform well even whenever that featured location is not in effect. And so that way, the games that you don't draw into it, it's fine. You can still have those potential win conditions. Now, of course, it's going to be stronger if you do draw into it, but you don't have to draw into it every single game to have that potential win condition. And so the last location is Bar Sinister. And so let's go ahead and play our... That's a lower part of our curve. I think we kind of hold that for just a bit. Let's go ahead and play our Punisher into the Danger Room. Let's see what they drop this turn. If we're confident, if we draw into either our Blue Marvel or our Spectrum, then we will go ahead and snap. At that point, we're very confident in what power we can push and the boosts that we can give onto the board. And so let's go ahead and split our ongoing power just a bit. We're going to push 2 of our cards into Washington, D.C. We have the 2 over in Danger Room, and then we're still waiting for that potential win condition or whatever we draw into in Bar Sinister. And so hopefully we draw into one of those 2. Having 2 potential drops gives us more outs than if we were relying solely on Spectrum in this list. And so they did drop Khazar over there, so that tells me they probably have a blue Marvel that they're going to want to drop in Bar Sinister. That's the only thing I can really imagine as to why they wouldn't fill this lane up. We're going to go with a Mr. Fantastic here and a Lizard. So a weird interaction between maybe Iron Man in Sinister London is if you have something that pushes power over to the side and you drop your Iron Man, he's going to I think to the like 30-second power, multiply the Mr. Fantastic bonus. And so I think it would end up being 64 power. It's either 32 or 64 power off of just the 2 from Mr. Fantastic. And so that is kind of what we're leaning in towards, is if we don't draw into Spectrum, which that would be more ideal, of course. But if we don't, we have a potential win condition in Bar Sinister. And so he does drop the Blue Marvel, which duplicates across that lane, giving a really, really big... That's going to push all of those Blue Marvels to 6 power. It's going to be a really big Bar Sinister lane. Plus, Danger Room is really big in and of itself. That's a tough one. So now it comes down to, do we think they can... 1, 2, 3, 4... Do we think they can push more than 17 power in this location? I think they can. I think they can, but since they haven't snapped, I'm just going to let this one play out. It's 1 additional cube. If this was for more at stake, if this was for 4 cubes or 8 cubes, I would likely back out at this point. But dropping the Iron Man is going to be kind of a funny roundabout play to end the game. And then we hope that they push some large power over into the Danger Room, which they do. Very interesting. And I don't think this is a bot. I don't think they would make a bot named Captain America. That just would blow my mind. And so our 2 power from Mr. Fantastic is going to get really nutty really quick. And so now we are at 16. Actually, okay, so it's only going to be 32. It's not as nutty as I thought, but it's still decent. It's still a win condition that is not necessarily upfront or readily apparent. And so it looks like maybe they went too top heavy on their deck and they really were relying on stacking it into 2 lanes. Or maybe it's a bot and I got fooled. But either way, this deck has a lot of pivotal pieces. Let's jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Giggity. And the first location is Gamma Lab, interestingly enough. Unfortunately, we don't have a Zood style deck, so we're not going to really participate in Gamma Lab. We're probably going to give that one away for the most part, and we're going to lean into these other 2 locations. Grand Central is decent for us. I mean, actually, we could do the Mr. Sinister. He doesn't get any kind of buff from Spectrum, so that at least helps us push power into that lane. We can always drop an Iron Man to help elevate it to that next level. And so maybe we do lean into Gamma Lab. Maybe I was a little bit hasty in saying that we wouldn't. And so they drop their Domino, which is not incredible. There is no Bar Sinister, so we're not going to have a crazy last turn play. But fortunately for us, this deck list performs pretty well even without that. And so do we push one more Hulk, or do we start investing into Grand Central? I kind of think we start stacking some of our power into Grand Central. Honestly, all that it would take over here is an Iron Man. And unless they have all 4 or more, then that should give us enough power. We're going to push a tiny bit with Mr. Fantastic. I think we need to start pushing some power presence into the other lanes, knowing that we can duplicate the Gamma Lab power bonus with our Iron Man. And they might be able to as well, but they did use a 3-cost drop to do so. And so that tells me that they have a pretty high curve, and so maybe that disrupts what they're able to push into the other lanes for the rest of the game. So let's go with a Lizard and an Armor into this lane. That almost caps us out. We're still looking for a Spectrum. I haven't really seen Spectrum, I don't think, at all since I made this deck. And I have. That's an exaggeration. I have seen her. Whenever she is drawn, it's really great, but it's just not all the time. Ooh, and then they get a White Queen, which does give them our Iron Man, because that is what we had in hand at the time. Okay, so let's go ahead and play our Iron Man into the Ruins. Grand Central, we have to remember, is going to pull into one of our cards after this turn. So we can always drop, if our Spectrum pulls here, we can drop a card over here on that final turn. If one of these cards get pulled into Grand Central, we can drop Spectrum here on that final turn. So I think we're okay. Even though they got our Iron Man, I'm feeling okay about it, because we know that we're going to push an Iron Man into the left lane. I don't know that they push a large amount of power into maybe the Grand Central. If they pivot and go there, that would be a little bit tougher, but I would probably anticipate our Iron Man being dropped right here, right now. Yep. And so that does push them, and it matches just about our power level. So it does pull into our Spectrum, and so that is going to buff up our Iron Man right away, which is a little bit less beneficial, but it does give us the flexibility to drop a couple of cards this turn. So we can do, I think the best one for us is going to be Iron Man in this lane, unless we think they're running a Spectrum list. Iron Man in this lane is going to give us an additional 4 power, which we'll duplicate. Okay, so they did end up retreating. It gives us an additional 4 power in this lane, which would duplicate because Iron Man. We could push a tiny bit of power here. They're going to have to impact all 3 lanes on this final turn to potentially find a win condition. And so even without Bar Sinister, this deck list can perform really, really well. Spectrum Ongoing is one of my favorite archetypes, but it does rely on getting one of your big combo pieces to push that power over the top. And so in a general game, this could push more than a Zoo. It's just a little bit less consistent than your Zoo style deck list. And so that is going to be the last game that I cover today. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. And so if you did like the video, make sure to give it a like and a comment down below. Let me know what deck you're running for the Bar Sinister featured location and how it's working out for you. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.